Although this boy was handsome, but he was a pervert in the eyes of the students. Any girl had the word Ji Soo in her name. He would try his best to find them and wooing them. In the end, he threw them away mercilessly. The school had only 5 girls named Ji Soo. Now 4 of them broke up with him. Then his next target must be this girl, young Ji Soo. But the girl just didn't believe in this evil. She thought that her best friend was exaggerating. So what if Yoon Sok Jin was the man of the moment on campus? After all, she already had boyfriend. Her boyfriend was not only tall and handsome, more importantly, no matter what danger young Ji Soo was in, Do Hyuk would stand up immediately and protect her in his arms. Her best friend had already heard tens of thousands of praises for her boyfriend. But in her heart, the image of Yoon Sok Jin who was both handsome and bad. It really met Ji Soo's mate selection criteria. This kind of girl who encouraged her girlfriend cheating was really rare. Young Ji Soo was so angry at the moment. This meant she didn't conform the rules of feminine education. No matter what her girlfriend said, she wouldn't allow that scumbag drawing the line. If he dared to mess with her, she would let him disappear. But when Ji Soo was talking, her girlfriend pointed to the place next to her. The girl followed her finger and looked back. Oh my god. Yoon Sok Jin was actually next to them all the time. The feeling of being caught by the person concerned, which made Ji Soo embarrassed on the spot. She thought that what she said just now would not be heard. Is it nonsense? Yoon Sok Jin was standing so close that could hear clearly. His face expressed playful. Are you talking about me? 3 people with 6 eyes facing each other. The 2 girls panicked. Young Ji Soo said WTF 10,000 times in her heart. This bad girlfriend, why you didn't say that Yoon Sok Jin was right next to her? In fact, she can't blame her girlfriend. It was a new semester after all. No one expected that Yoon Sok Jin would suddenly appear in their class. The boy looked handsome. In fact, he was just a metamorphosis in other metamorphosis. His specialist was looking for a relationship with a girl with the name Ji Soo. And kicked them afterwards. But if you do too many bad things, there will always be accidents. 4th girlfriend, Kim Ji Soo. Because she was abandoned too quickly, she shouted Yoon Sok Jin as a scumbag. Looking at the furious girl in front of him, Yoon Sok Jin thought that she still wanted to save herself. Unexpectedly, she was crying like raindrops on a pear blossom. Then stopped crying in a flash. She slapped the scumbag with her backhand. Before people could react, Kim Ji Soo ran out the door. For a moment, the atmosphere was extremely awkward. Now Yoon Sok Jin was pushed to at the heart of the struggle. He felt a burning pain on his face. He turned to look at young Ji Soo behind him. His such sharp eyes made the girl's mood become subtle. The matter didn't come to an end until the teacher came in. But Ji Soo was always in a state of disarray. Class finally finished. She immediately asked her best friend whether the rumor about Yoon Sok Jin was true or not. Her best friend vaguely said that it was rumored by others. But it was not the girl named Ji Soo who said it herself. This made the girl was more upset. Parents named her Ji Soo. They just wanted her to become a person with literary talent and self-restraint. But she was not distinguishing red, blue or black, white. That scolded Yoon Sok Jin behind his back. The guilt welling up in her heart made the girl wonder whether she should apologize to him. Until her girlfriend left after school, she was still thinking about how to express her apology. But when this boy appeared, he swept away the depression in Ji Soo's heart. Because she knew obviously, that the love between them was more than anything. But no matter how vigorous the love was, there would be a little flaw. Over there was Do Hyuk's childhood sweetheart, Na Rio. They grew up together, studied and played together. The girl was still the one who knew Do Hyuk best until now. And Na Rio also regarded her as a rival in love. She relied on her weak and sick body since the childhood. She always got in the way of the sweetness of Ji Soo and Do Hyuk. But Do Hyuk bought this every times. When he heard that Na Rio felt uncomfortable, he immediately showed a dilemma. Although Ji Soo was angry, but she can't stop Do Hyuk's footsteps. She can only silently watch the back of the boy leaving. Unexpectedly, when she was melancholy, a figure rushed to her side. Don't look, he's gone far. The boy obviously had a girlfriend. He always thought about the sickly childhood sweetheart. Once the girl said that she was uncomfortable, he immediately turned into a flower guardian and left his girlfriend behind. Ji Soo can't do anything about it. But unfortunately, this scene was caught by Yoon Sok Jin. The elusive boy startled her. He asked him where he came from. But when she saw Yoon Sok Jin glance to the right, he indicated that he came out of the trash can. He also said something meaningful. Garbage should go in the trash can. Apparently the boy was mad at what Ji Soo said about him in the morning. She knew she couldn't escape this time no matter what. Besides, after all, it was her own fault. So she mustered the courage to face the boy. She sincerely apologized for what she said. But Yoon Sok Jin didn't seem to be listening. Instead, he asked Ji Soo if she wanted to go home now. He took the initiative to invite the girl back together. As soon as his words came out, young Ji Soo was stunned on the spot. And very decisively refused to go with him. A moment later, the street in the setting sun. There were a shadow of a man and a woman appearing. She peeked at the boy behind her. She suddenly stopped. She turned around and asked why Yoon Sok Jin followed her. Did he have any intention? But the boy pointed to the upstairs and expressed that he lived there. Ji Soo was very skeptical. She also came out of this neighborhood but never saw him. The boy explained that they met yesterday. But at that time Ji Soo was focused on the novel. She also said something like how to write a kiss scene. Ji Soo immediately covered Yoon Sok Jin's mouth. Apparently the boy was indeed her neighbor. And her roaring kiss scene or something. It was because Ji Soo had always dreamed of being a novelist, but when Yoon Sok Jin wanted to see her writing, the girl directly and decisively refused him. She hadn't thought about the next plot. The boy thought for a moment. He concurred to have a novel subject. That was, the male protagonist only liked to fall in love with girls with the same name. Wasn't this exactly Yoon Sok Jin's story? She didn't know why the boy said this to herself. Just when Yoon Sok Jin was about to leave, Ji Soo caught him. For the boy in front of her. She wanted to know the truth before making a judgment on whether the rumor was correct. He was the scum that everyone shouted at the school. He always looked for a girl with the same name to fall in love with. When the girl really touched him, she turned out that it was not that simple. The moment the two sat on the bench, Yoon Sok Jin began to talk about what happened to her. The first story was that Ji Soo liked watching movies. The genre was horror. Their first date was at the cinema. Ji Soo specified the scariest movie to watch. At that time, he was terrified. But the girl was sitting upright. Ji Soo smiled to comfort himself. "Give me your hand, hold my hand and you won't be afraid." But seeing the boy describe this matter vividly, Ji Soo was stunned, because everything Yoon Sok Jin said, including that sentence "give me your hand," it was all about her first date with skipping class. Yoon Sok Jin wanted to talk the next thing, but Ji Soo interrupted him abruptly. She asked him where he heard this, but the boy was suspicious. These things were his and Ji Soo's story. These stories were clearly her own experience of writing Do Hyuk. Why was Yoon Seo Jin's experience so similar to hers? Was it really a coincidence? Until going to school the next day, Ji Soo was still thinking about everything the boy said yesterday. Unexpectedly, a figure came to her, and held the girl's hand tightly. Looking at this gentle boy, the haze in Ji Soo's heart was swept away. But when they were saying sweet things with each other, there was a noise not far away. Yoon Sok Jin was being surrounded by a group of girls. Ji Soo was so scared that she immediately turned Do Hyuk's head around. She didn't want Do Hyuk and Yoon Sok Jin run into each other. She dragged the boy walking towards the back door. At the same time, Yoon Sok Jin also found them. After coming to the classroom, Ji Soo told her girlfriend what happened yesterday. Her girlfriend was suspicious. How can there be such a coincidence in the world? This made Ji Soo break out in a cold sweat. Could it be that Yoon Sok Jin was a stalker? But under the comfort of her best friend, the girl let go of the anxiety in her heart. But her phone suddenly vibrated in her trouser pocket. These were several messages from Do Hyuk. The content was roughly that he was going to accompany Na Ah Ryo. He can't take care of her. Her girlfriend also was going to cram school. Ji Soo was alone again. She liked a stone on the side of the road being kicked around. She would always put Do Hyuk first. But in Do Hyuk's heart, maybe she was a dispensable person. This girl, the fool, she unreservedly gave the truth. In return, she just received the boy who ruthlessly abandoned her. Anywhere, anytime, Do Hyuk always put his childhood sweetheart first. But even so, Ji Soo can't hate Do Hyuk, because she liked him so she couldn't speak it out. For her love, she would rather be a fool. But emotion failure didn't hinder her dream of becoming a novelist. So she thought of Yoon Sok Jin again. The story he told, the boy who was claimed to be the Ji Soo killer, made Ji Soo's curiosity grow stronger. What the hell he was trying to do? Instead of sitting at home and fantasizing, it was better to ask Yoon Sok Jin directly. So the next day she rushed to the boy's desk. She wanted Yoon Sok Jin to make things clear. She heard the students discussing around. Under the pressure of public opinion, she had to change the place of conversation to the rooftop. She asked Yoon Sok Jin that, "Are you really the Ji Soo killer that everyone calls?" Facing the stability of the girl, Yoon Sok Jin did not answer. Instead, he changed the subject to show that the two of them didn't know each other that well. No matter how anxious Ji Soo was, what she got was Yoon Sok Jin, who didn't care about the topic. Later, he asked Ji Soo how the novel was written. After a while, he said that when they got closer, he can told the story. But Ji Soo didn't want to wait for a moment now. In desperation, Yoon Sok Jin chose to compromise. If a girl can believe in him, he talked about the matter slowly. Ji Soo believed him for a simple reason. Because no one had ever heard what they said, and she also was too curious about Yoon Sok Jin. So the boy slowly opened his mouth. The second story of Ji Soo. He waited for the girl for a long time that day, since it was the first date to meet Ji Soo. When he met her, he felt nervous. His whole body was in tense state. When facing this pretty cute girl, he really liked her. However, when the two were about to enter the coffee shop, his mother called him. The boy's childhood sweetheart fell ill again. So the date was over before it even started. The girl letting go of her hand was like giving up the boy's whole body. After listening to this, Ji Soo's tears could not stop rolling down her cheeks. The friend of the sick let go of the lover.